let's face it, money can be, well, a real emotional roller coaster.
Oh, absolutely.
We've all been there, right? That guilt after maybe an impulse buy or the struggle to actually save anything.
Mm-hmm. Or even just feeling awkward asking for what you're worth.
Totally. And, of course, there's that spending that's tied so closely to our feelings, whether we're happy or maybe feeling a bit down.
It's fascinating how, the traditional money advice often just tells you what you shouldn't do. It's all about limits.
Exactly. And that's kind of where this idea of money my way comes in. It's from the book we're diving into today, Kumiko Love, My Money My Way.
Right.
It offers a pretty different take, less about those rigid rules and more about figuring out your own needs, your own desires.
So aligning your finances with your life, your goals, not just some standard template.
Precisely. It's not someone else's blueprint.
And I guess looking at the big picture, it's really about moving away from that constant financial stress.
Yeah, finding more control, more confidence.
Yeah.
So the goal for us in this deep dive is to really explore those emotional roots of financial well-being.
Right.
We'll be pulling out some actionable insights from the book to help you, take charge of your money wherever you are right now.
And we know you, our listener, you might be prepping for a meeting or just trying to get your head around a topic quickly.
Or maybe you're just intensely curious. Whatever the reason, we're aiming for a focused, insightful look, hopefully some aha moments without it feeling too heavy.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So the book kicks off by really stating a core truth.
Mm-hmm.
Our money situation and our emotional state,
Yeah.
they are deeply linked.
Inseparable almost.
Yeah. And what's striking is just the sheer range of emotions that can really mess with how we spend.
It's a whole spectrum, isn't it? Things like panic, fear, feeling insecure, low self-esteem.
Anxiety, doubt, even shame.
Mm-hmm.
The book lists all of these as real drivers.
Yeah, drivers behind spending habits that can, ultimately drag down our quality of life.
And it's not just an abstract list. The author shares a really relatable personal story
Oh, yeah, that part really hit home.
about a major family change and the intense guilt she felt afterwards.
Right. After this big shift, she felt this huge pressure to make everything seem normal for her son, to prove she was, a good mom.
And how did that manifest financially?
Well, it led to maxing out credit cards. We're talking furniture, decor, a microwave, pots, pans, kitchen gadgets, even a whole new bed.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, beds aren't cheap. And it was all fueled by this emotional need, this desire to provide and make it seem like everything was okay, stable.
And the key thing there is the emotional reasoning. It wasn't logically about needing all those specific things right at that moment.
Not at all. It was about trying to soothe that internal feeling, that guilt.
Which shows how emotions can just completely hijack logical financial thinking. You end up in debt because of feelings, not actual needs.
And it kind of snowballed, didn't it? She mentioned accepting more credit card offers, figuring she'd deal with it later.
Mm-hmm. All tied to wanting to create that safe and happy space, as she put it.
Yeah.
And then comes that really stark moment, the big moment of truth, she calls it, in the McDonald's drive-thru.
Oh, that image. Financing a $1.99 ice cream cone on a credit card.
Yeah.
That just crystallizes it, doesn't it? That massive disconnect between a tiny, fleeting want and the underlying financial reality.
It's such a powerful illustration of how detached spending can become when emotions are steering the ship.
Totally.
And that whole experience, understandably, made her question traditional budgeting. What was her main issue with those standard methods?
She basically felt they just weren't built for real life. All the inflexible rules, that constant feeling of being deprived.
Right. It wasn't managing money itself that was the problem.
No, it was the rigid, often totally unrealistic rules that came with it.
And her response wasn't just to try harder with the same rules, which is interesting. She started experimenting.
Exactly. She ditched the shoulds, and started focusing only on what actually felt useful for her.
Like that example about emotional spending.
Yeah. Instead of hitting the mall when she felt low, she went for a run. It's about finding those personal, healthier substitutes for coping.
Which really underlines how important it is to tailor your financial strategy. You can't just follow generic advice blindly. You have to see what works in your life.
And that's how her own budgeting system started to take shape.
Yeah.
She kind of blended useful, traditional ideas with her own goals.
Moving beyond just, like paying bills.
Yeah, it became about understanding her own motivations. She even used a physical budgeting calendar at first.
Oh, wow, old school.
Right, and then eventually moved to a zero-based budget where every single dollar had a specific job.
So you see this clear shift from feeling restricted by rules to being more intentional.
Which brings us back to that core idea the book emphasizes. These strategies have to work with our emotions, not, fight against them.
Absolutely. That evolution highlights a central theme. You need to understand and manage emotions in your financial plan, not just try to squash them down.
Because that guilt she felt, or the panic someone else might feel, they aren't just bad feelings to ignore.
There's signals. The book really stresses that. Feelings like guilt and panic often point to deeper issues, unmet needs.
Like in her case, the guilt was tied directly to her love for her son.
Exactly. And this leads straight into a really vital concept the book introduces.
Yeah.
Uncovering your deep motivation, finding your why.
Ah, yes, the why.
The book argues this is like the fundamental first step if you really want to transform your finances.
It's not enough to just say, I want to save more or I want to pay off debt. You got to dig deeper.
Much deeper.
And Janine's story in the book is such a powerful example of this. What stood out to you about her initial situation?
Well, Janine's story really shows how deep these money beliefs can go, often from childhood. She grew up thinking money was just scarce, something she couldn't have.
Right, that scarcity mindset. And combined with low self-esteem, it led to some really difficult financial behaviors.
Yeah, even though she worked hard, she spent her limited money on things like massages, makeup, almost trying to buy a feeling of worth.
While neglecting basics, like dental care. And her relationship choices, also linked to that low self-worth, ended up causing eviction and serious debt.
And what's really insightful is that even when she started she joined the budget mom community, used cash envelopes, and managed to save a bit.
It still wasn't hitting the core issue, right?
Exactly. She wasn't tackling the emotional drivers. She was still kind of spending on others, maybe seeking that validation, trying to make up for how she felt inside.
Until she had that realization, she needed to prioritize herself, including tackling her own debt.
And that shift wasn't small. It involved some big steps.
Like pausing a relationship to focus, taking on extra gig work just to pay down debt faster.
Yeah, really committing.
And then starting those sinking funds, saving specifically for things that mattered to her, moving closer to her dad, a vacation, home improvements, that safety net of an emergency fund.
It's like she finally gave herself permission to invest in her own happiness and future.
Totally. And you even see those outward signs, right?
Yeah.
The hair, the nose piercing.
It's like taking control of her money empowered her to be more authentically herself in other ways, too.
It's such a great illustration of finding that deeper motivation.
Janine's journey really shows the power of understanding your why. And the book actually gives us a framework, like 3 steps to figure out our own why.
Okay, let's break those down. And just quickly, the amazing outcome for Janine, she actually started to enjoy managing her money.
Incredible, right? From dread to passion. It even led her to a new career in finance.
Which just shows personal growth itself can be a massive why. It's okay for your motivation to be about your fulfillment, your purpose.
Absolutely. So how do we find this why? Step 1, the book suggests, is defining your purpose. What's the main question here?
The basic question is, why do you really want to reach your financial goals? You have to go beyond the surface level, like just wanting financial security.
Right. The book uses a great example. Wanting stability isn't the end goal. The deeper why behind that might be wanting peace in your life, escaping that constant worry.
Okay, makes sense. Step 2 then pushes us to think beyond ourselves. What's the question there?
You need to ask, who or what in my life do my finances affect besides me? Recognizing that ripple effect.
And it could be kids, pets, parents, like the book suggests. It adds another layer, a broader sense of purpose.
Which can be really motivating.
And finally, step 3 is about visualization. Why is picturing it so important?
The book really emphasizes making that future tangible in your mind, creating an emotional connection.
Like the author picturing her son laughing in their future home.
Exactly. That vivid image, that feeling, becomes way more powerful fuel than just an abstract idea like being debt-free. It makes the goal feel real, something worth fighting for.
Okay, so you have this powerful visualized why. Now, the book also talks about motivation versus discipline. How does it separate those two?
Yeah, this is key. Motivation is like the sparkler, that initial excitement, the strong why that gets you all fired up.
Gets you started.
Right. But the book warns that motivation, Well, it comes and goes. It's unreliable for the long haul. Think of it like the kindling for a fire.
Okay. So discipline is...
Discipline is the logs you keep adding to the fire.
Yeah.
It's the how, the consistent actions, the self-regulation of your financial habits.
So it's a choice you make over and over.
Exactly. Like updating your budget planner every week, even when you really don't feel like it. Or sticking to boundaries, like not going to the mall when you know you're stressed and likely to impulse buy.
Got it. Motivation kicks you off, discipline keeps you going, especially when things get tough or boring.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Now let's dig into what makes a why really powerful, according to the book. What are the key traits?
Okay.
First off, a strong why is deeply personal. It's unique to you.
Yeah.
It can be tied to your family, your past, your own dreams.
Like that example of the community member whose why wasn't just for her kids, but about teaching them different financial habits, breaking a cycle.
Yeah, ending those generational struggles, that's powerful. Second, a good why is specific. General desires aren't as effective.
Right. Like the author's own why evolved, didn't it? From just, my son is my why.
To something much clearer. Living a life with my son where I can seize opportunities with him without relying on debt. That specificity really guides your day-to-day choices.
Makes total sense. And the third characteristic.
A powerful why is something you genuinely can't imagine living without. Why is that feeling of necessity important?
Because it forces you to consider the stakes.
Exactly. Thinking about the consequences of giving up on your why really strengthens your resolve.
Yeah.
Like for the author, the thought of not being able to give her son opportunities is just unthinkable. It keeps you going.
Okay, so personal, specific, and essential. But the book also warns about some common mistakes when finding your why. What should we avoid?
Well, a big one is making your why all about what other people expect or external pressure.
Trying to please others.
Right. Like that client who was newly single and struggling. Her why only clicked when she realized it wasn't about proving something, but about her own desire for travel. It has to be authentic to you.
Good point. What else?
Avoid superficial whys that just focus on the mechanics like pay off debt or balance the budget. Those are outcomes, not the deep emotional drivers.
They're the what, not the why.
Precisely. They're the tools. And the book really insists, take the time to reflect on your why before you jump into spreadsheets and tactics. It's the foundation.
Absolutely. Which leads us nicely into understanding the real reason you buy things. The book suggests it's often not about the thing itself.
Yeah, the motivations run much deeper. The author talks about being obsessed with the movie Working Girl as a kid.
Oh, yeah, Melanie Griffith, Harrison Ford, classic.
Right, and how that shaped this image she wanted, creating this subconscious link between material things and unlocking her future potential.
So that H&M shopping spree she went on, even when she was broke.
Exactly. It wasn't really about the clothes. It was driven by this deep-seated belief that stuff would somehow get her where she wanted to go. Emotionally driven.
Until that slap-in-the-face moment, as she called it, in the checkout line.
Yeah, overhearing that girl ask her mom for her credit card, it triggered this sudden fear in the author, a fear of being dependent forever.
And she just abandoned the purchase, walked away.
Which is a fantastic example of developing what the book calls decision-making awareness.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It's understanding why you do what you do financially and figuring out what needs to change. Recognizing the emotional trigger like stress leading to revenge spending on takeout is the first step to breaking the cycle.
Right, identifying the pattern.
And Cassie's story is another really good illustration here. She had a good job, good salary, but was still struggling.
To the point of being embarrassed about not being able to pay rent. That must have been tough.
Yeah. And it forced her to confront her spending. Her initial why, it turned out, was all tangled up with trying to impress her mother.
Projecting an image again, leading to spending she couldn't really afford.
Exactly. It wasn't sustainable. Things only started changing when her why shifted from pleasing others to wanting genuine financial independence for herself.
And her first attempts at budgeting were too restrictive, right? Didn't stick.
No, because they weren't aligned with her actual values. It wasn't until she found the Budget Mom principles, which emphasized that personal why, that things clicked into place for her.
And the change was pretty dramatic within a year.
Huge. Paid off debt, built savings, started investing, shifted to intentional spending with cash and debit. It really shows how getting clear on your why fuels real, lasting transformation.
It all comes back to that. So to even begin understanding these patterns, these emotional drivers, the book suggests a really basic but crucial first step.
Which is?
Tracking your spending. For a whole month, Why is that simple act so foundational?
Because honestly, most of us don't really know where our money goes. We think we do, but we often don't. Tracking gives you that clear, objective picture.
No more guesswork.
Exactly. Whether you jot it down manually, use an app, or just go through your bank and credit card statements for the past month.
It's about creating that baseline awareness, seeing the reality of your current financial flow.
And that awareness, as we've talked about all through this deep dive, is absolutely the essential starting point for aligning your spending with your true values, with your personal why.
So bringing it all together then, this deep dive really just hammered home for me that financial health isn't just about spreadsheets and interest rates. It's so deeply tied up with our emotional selves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that true control, that confidence, it doesn't come from forcing yourself into rigid boxes. It comes from understanding your motivations, your why.
And consciously aligning your money decisions with that personal purpose.
We've really explored those vital first steps today, acknowledging those hidden emotional forces behind our spending.
Yeah, and starting that journey of self-discovery to actually define what your unique financial purpose even is.
It's about asking the right questions.
So now we really want to encourage you listening to take a moment, reflect on your own relationship with money, your emotional ties to it.
Start thinking about your why. Use those questions we discussed. Why do you really want what you want financially?
Who else is impacted? What does that ideal future actually look like, feel like, smell like for you? Get specific.
That initial reflection, that's where the seeds of real lasting change are planted.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, here's a final thought for you to take away and maybe chew on this week. Now that you started peeling back some of those emotional layers around your finances, what's one small, concrete action you can take, just one thing this week, to start aligning your spending a little bit closer to what truly brings you value and ultimately brings you peace?